Season 2, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 9, Subspace Rhapsody. I have to admit, I'm blown away by this one. I honestly went into this thing with somewhat of a closed mind. The idea of watching an episode of Star Trek that was basically a musical. Thoughts, when you heard about it, when you think about it, they run through your mind like, what in the heck are these people thinking? But then when you sit down and watch it, the premise behind what happened, it actually is. I'll give them credit. It was a brilliant episode. I absolutely loved it. Okay, so the show opens with the Enterprise at the edge of the Alpha Quadrant encountering a subspace fold, a naturally occurring subspace fold, as Uhura would announce it is. And Spock has decided that this may be a faster way for subspace communications in the sector. So they decided to perform experiments on it. In order for Spock to complete his experiment or run his tests, he needs a lot of the computer space on the Enterprise. So communications, for an example, must be done the old-fashioned way, like a secretary routing it. Let me route your call. That's pretty much how she's doing this. At the same time, she's really showing off how talented a communications officer she is, and she does quite an amazing job at handling all the ship's communications. Pike and Patel are discussing vacation plans, and Pike is not exactly comfortable with the idea of what she's proposing. She wants to go on a vacation on a touristy-type planet, and that's just not his speed. But he's not going to tell her that until later in the episode, which is definitely an interesting scene to watch. This episode is going to make them reveal things to each other that they normally would not have done. And as I said before, I think this was done in a very clever way, using music as a way of expressing yourself. In a normal way of life, we do that all the time. We enjoy our music and we express ourselves through our music, and putting it out there the way they did in this episode, I just think was an amazing piece of work. I have to give the showrunners credit here. All right, so Lieutenant Kirk is coming on board, basically the Shadow #1, a little hands-on training, as it were, to help him get ready to become first officer on the Farragut. Now, this, I have to say, is probably one of the best scenes for me, from a historical standpoint, in this episode, meaning that it finally is aligning itself with the original Star Trek and its history. Nurse Chapel has just been given a grandship, a 3-month grandship or stewardship with Dr. Corby. This scene will also bring some serious tension between Chapel and Spock. Down in the engine room, Spock and Uhura are trying to send communication signals through the void, and they're not getting any responses. And they're trying to explain to Pelia that the best way, or what they're hoping for in all this, is that communication would be received real fast, almost like picking up a cell phone and calling someone instantaneously. You're on the line with someone else, not waiting hours for them to respond. So she suggests, why not going through fundamental harmonics, fundamental principles of science, using basic things like harmonics, music, sending a piece of music through and see what happens there. Spock asks Uhura to pick out the piece of music that would be broadcasted, and she's all excited about it. She picks the song Anything Goes. Sending out the signal creates such an amazing, chaotic mess. Anything goes. And the shock wave that comes back on them just shoots through the whole ship. The shockwave was so violent that Pike comes on the bridge thinking that another ship attacked them. When he's informed that the shockwave came from the fold, he calls engineering and finds out what's going on. And that's when things start going crazy. When they ask Spock for a damage report, All of a sudden, he starts singing. And not only does he start singing, the entire crew starts singing, and more insane music starts pumping through the whole ship. Everyone is freaked out by this. Everyone is asking in this song, or rather singing this song, why are we singing? So basically what happened when they sent the musical signal into the void there, it created a musical reality that they're now stuck in. Uncontrollable urges to sing songs. Now, I got to be honest with you. Whoever wrote the songs, I have to commend them. They work well. As I said before, I had my doubts about this episode. The idea of watching a Star Trek episode where there's just, it's more like a Broadway play than it is a science fiction show. But then to see the episode and explain the events that are taking place and how they have to solve the problem, I really think that you will have a good time with this, especially if you really do not mind shows or anything with music. The one thing that's really good about this episode is the songs, when they get the urge to sing and their emotions are incredibly high, it pretty much forces them. They have no control over it. It brings out their inner feelings, their emotions. Like any song, it's just you're pouring your heart out, even if it's your deepest secrets. That is what happens in this episode. Things are revealed that normally wouldn't be revealed, and they're coming out, and sometimes in very painful ways. In Lon's case, she's having a musical and a little bit of a sexual fantasy about Kirk. Now, this scares the living heck out of her, so she runs off the pike and pretty much says that this musical episode we're having here is a security issue. We're letting our feelings out, and this is a problem because we're going to let things out that we shouldn't be. There are things that we keep bottled up that we should keep to ourselves, even if it's a security, classified stuff. And Pike's not believing that. He learns real quick what Lon is concerned about when he starts pouring his heart out to Captain Patel on the view screen in front of everyone to see, even though she is now singing as well. So as I said before, when Pike started singing to Captain Patel, he was not really aware that the effect was only going to get worse, because what the Enterprise just did was make the signal grow stronger. It's not only around them, it is now spread to 12 different Starfleet vessels. And the Klingons are going to get involved too. They decide to bring aboard a subatomic particle from the fold so they can examine it and maybe figure out a way to put an end to this nightmare. So in the midst of all this craziness, they seem to have time to go to the bar, and Spock walks in to find Chaplin and a couple of the others celebrating her being awarded the grant, the tuition to Dr. Corby, and Spock realizes that, hey, should I have been involved in all this? Shouldn't have you? If we're dating, if we're together, shouldn't have you talked to me about this? And at that moment, she starts in on her own musical rant. The whole lounge breaks into chorus with her singing her song about how she's so excited for getting the fellowship. And when the song ends, Spock just turns around and walks away, not a word. And the thing that I find interesting about this is he's in this show, you see a more rigid Spock. You really don't see as much of the Spock we knew from the original series. But in this particular episode, he really, really is showing some feelings. He's hurt by this. Now, as for Lon and her feelings toward Kirk, she decides to break down and tell him what happened between her and the alternate Kirk. And this, my friends, again, this right here is where I will give this show credit for trying to bring canon back into things. Because it's at this point here where Kirk decides to tell her, I am not the Kirk that you knew before, and I am seeing someone. and she's stunned, and he mentions the name Carol. That's right, Carol Marcus. So we're lining things up in some ways, the way that it should be. Although this show has changed some of the history, but I'm not going there. Now, the fold effect is now impacting the Klingons as well, which has dispatched a ship to attack the fold. And when they figure out that they're going to fire on it and destroy it, they come to the conclusion that can't happen, because if it does, the fold will send out a massive shockwave that will wipe out the Federation and the Klingon Empire. So naturally, they got to fix this before the Klingons do any damage. Uhura figured out that they need 344 giga electron volts to shatter the field and put everything back to normal. Now, they got to do this real soon, because now there's 3 Klingon battle cruisers heading to this thing. So Pike says, how are we supposed to do this? Like an ensemble or something? Nope. They need the entire crew to sing in harmony one final grand finale to put an end to this. Each crew member singing about how the Enterprise has impacted them, how each other have done things to help each other out. It's just an incredible ending to this, not to mention the fact that they wind up getting the Klingons involved with the song. It's just hilarious to watch this one bit. And then they switch over to the Enterprise and the Klingon ships, and it's almost like they're doing a waltz together. Whoever designed these scenes, bravo to them, because this was very entertaining. I mean, come on, honestly, did you ever imagine that you would be watching an episode where everyone is dancing around like this? Now that the anomaly is taken care of, it pretty much has caused damage. Spock doesn't want anything to do with Chapel anymore. Lons revealed her secret to Kurt, and she is hurt because I guess in some way she still had these deep images and visions of them going off and maybe to Riser or something. Now, on the other side of it, these two have figured out that they need to work on their communication skills a little bit more if their relationship is going to work. Okay, so that really is the episode. Subspace Rhapsody. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I could tell you, well, actually I can tell you, I just don't think that I could probably put this on a list of something I could watch again and again, like some of the other Star Treks that are out there, but it was really good. I really enjoyed this. I think it was well done. I'd like to know what you think about this. Have you seen this episode yet? If you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to watch it. Just to watch it and say that you watched it. Who knows? Maybe you will enjoy it. Maybe you won't. I mean, like I said at the beginning, the idea of watching these characters dance around in a musical, it was something that did not intrigue me. But as I decided to sit down and watch it, I was blown away by how really good it was. So I'm going to end the video right here, my friends, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, click that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. It'd be greatly appreciated. And until the next time, my friends, God bless.